you did your movie show.
Yeah,
Your little
there was no horror in it.
You did your little movie show.
Yeah, I did my movie show. And I did another show that was also movie themed with a friend. Like, I'm now doing another movie themed show. And off as the movie guy.
Yes, well, so I mean, just for context for people that were not in Melbourne, Australia last month. Yeah, your show was the last blockbuster on Earth.
The last podcast on Earth.
Oh no, it's this one.
That's next year.
What's your favorite genre then? If you had to pick one.
It's so pathetic. It's like dramedy or something. Like It's like probably watch that more than anything else. And then like caper. I'll watch a heist. I'm obsessed with heists. So if it's a heist, I'll watch it.
Yeah, so you love anything with two men with like a sack with dollar signs on it?
Yeah, or like a crew.
Oh.
Like assembling people with skills.
A motley crew, a ragtag bunch.
And I guess Prison Break is the opposite of the heist for the same reason, so I'll watch that.
Anyway, Scott Limbrick, welcome to Reanimates.
Thank you.
I was like, when am I going to get this intro in there? Whenever I bloody please. It's my podcast.
Everyone's always like, horror and comedy are the same because they build tension. It's just that horror then like breaks it by like scaring you, but comedy breaks by making you laugh. I mean, I guess that's fun. That's true sometimes.
I suppose, but I think you can cross-pollinate any two genres by making similar things like that.
That's true.
I mean...
Horror's like drama in that some of it's realistic.
Horror's like drama in that it's dramatic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's releasing comedy. That's what a bloody laugh is, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that the film we're doing today sits snugly in the Venn diagram of horror and comedy, and it's great at both of them. G'day, it's Dibbo here. Not really sure what happened with this recording, but for some reason it cut out the title of the film that we're covering. Probably some spooky reason. It's Holiday Hell from 2019. Anyway, enjoy. A horror anthology, in a sense. The stories are meant to be loosely connected by the idea that they're all about some sort of holiday.
Which is... It's arguable. Yeah,
it's very, very loosely connected. I think the narrative wraparound is at Christmas.
When I opened this, so yeah, first I saw it was 2019. I went, I was expecting to watch an older film for no reason except that that's what I had in my head. Then I saw it had 4 directors. I went, this is going to be incredibly bad. Then I realized it was an anthology. I was like, okay, fair enough. You can have 4 directors if it's an anthology.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm gearing up for something that really went to pieces.
So the 4 directors are Jeremy Berg, who... I found this incredibly weird description of one of his films. I don't know who fills in an IMDB page about a film. Like, I don't know if it's fan written or... if, the person who makes the film puts in all of those credits.
I think the producer usually does it, but if it's like a short film they've made themselves,
I
guess they can just do it.
Yeah. Either way, Jeremy Berg worked on a film in 2013 called The Invoking. And this is verbatim the description of the film on IMDb. Group of friends to try provoking spirit at house. They scare horrible things, don't not see it.
Does it deliver on that?
I am not going to watch it, but now, honestly, I'm a little bit curious because that just gives me further questions about what the plot could possibly be.
I'm trying to read that back to clarify, but I can't remember a single order of the words in that.
Nope. So, Jeremy Berg, sort your IMDb out, mate. It was also directed by the 2 writers of the film, Jeff Farrell and Jeff Vigil. And again...
Were they the only 2 writers?
Yes. So 4 directors, 2 writers.
I thought, okay.
Does that change your opinion?
For some reason, I'm like, there should have been a more coherent vision when there were only 2 writers. I thought they just gave 4 of them a go.
All of the segments were at least cohesive in that all of them were bad in the same way.
Yeah. They were all bad.
Yeah. Just, I mean...
in many ways, but those many ways were the same.
If it's not clear to the listeners, this is not a great film.
Yeah.
It will become clear why. One of my favourite things to do on this podcast is to look at the goofs that finicky weirdos of the internet have put into IMDb.
Yeah.
This one only has 1, but it's
making it.
Look, it's pretty good. I mean, the fact that this person felt compelled to include this is under factual errors, just so you know. The US flag in the shop is displayed incorrectly. As per section 175 of the US Code, quote, when displayed either horizontally or vertically against a wall, the union should be uppermost, and to the flag's own right, that is, to the observer's left. So,
the flag's own right.
Yeah.
What a way to describe that. But they're right, the rest was factually...
If you're listening, whoever wrote that, go on a vacation, take up a hobby, do anything else with your life. The film centers around a kind of an antique junk shop.
Classic Goosebumps setup.
Yes, it's a curiosity shop.
Yeah.
And...
the arcane.
Oh, the arcane, the magical, the depraved.
We never used the word, the arcane. I was like, what is this?
Our customer is a woman called Amelia, played by Megan Karimi Nazer, who's quite good in this.
I think she's all right.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of choices in this film, whether it was the acting, whether it was the script, whether it was the camera, whether it was the effects. There was always something where I thought they've half-assed it.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many things where I thought, if you had taken a little bit more time on this could have looked astoundingly better, and we'll definitely hit on that a lot.
Or more intentionally worse. I think they could have made a lot of it worse and it would have been better for me.
Yeah. Gone full hog and just been like, we're going to make it fucking wacky. The stories themselves are not terribly inventive, but they definitely could have been more interesting because, you know, there's a million stories about the things that we see in this anthology, but there's other times when it's been done more interestingly.
I was a bit annoyed even as I started to watch this because I listened to a couple of other episodes and I thought a fun game that people were doing was like going into it not... because I don't know who Jeffrey Combs is. So people had gone in also not checking beforehand, and I was going to check beforehand, but then I listened. I was like, it's actually fun to hear people not be able to figure out who Jeffrey Combs is in the movie. But then the opening credits introduce him as like, and Jeffrey Combs as the shopkeeper.
There's like, oh, damn it.
And that was the last shot before the movie. So I was like, oh, no, I know who he is.
That has been it definitely wasn't an intentional game for my guests not to know who the actor is, but it has been really funny, especially I think when Alistair Trombo Birchall in the Fortress episode didn't realize until probably halfway through the episode that he'd been watching the wrong actor. It was a great reveal. Oh, he was... I mean, it is incredibly funny, and in a way, sometimes I like talking about Jeffrey Combs to people who are like incredibly au fait with his work, you know, fellow horror fans and people who know all of those character actors that I watch. But then sometimes it's fun to talk to people that may not have the sizable investment that I do in this world and in this actor. So in this, Jeffrey Combs plays our shopkeeper, Thaddeus Rosemont, which is a silly name.
It's a good name.
It's a good name for an arcane shopkeeper who gets a cravat from somewhere halfway through the film. Like, he starts the film without one and then he gets one somehow. Yeah. It's a cravat name. Yeah. Absolutely. So he runs this curiosity shop that's full of like taxidermy, skulls, medical equipment,
American flags that are hung up incorrectly.
Oh, absolutely. That's the most spooky thing of all in there. Yeah, a lot of religious items. It reminds me a bit of a shop in Melbourne City, for Melbourne people who are listening, called Wunderkammer.
What's that?
It's in the CBD.
Not off your tree?
No, very different place. As far as I know, Wunderkammer does not sell bongs. But it's a curiosity shop, you know, lots of taxidermy and old arcane medical objects and things like that. It's a lovely shop. Check it out. They're not paying me anything for that. It just reminded me of it. So JC's in it straight away. And obviously because he's part of the narrative wraparound, we don't get him for as long as we want. As long as I want, anyway. But he's there. He's in a pinstripe suit. He's explaining to Amelia that every item in the store has a story.
Which is good for the movie.
Well, yes, it's very handy. It's very handy also.
Structurally.
Yeah, it's like, what about that skull? Nah, it's got nothing. I just found it. It's a nobody skull. So Amelia spots this broken, painted up, ceramic-looking mask. Like, kind of, what do you call those theatre masks?
Yeah, like
Are they just called theatre masks?
I don't know, like the plain white. Yeah.
Not the halfy, not the Phantom of the Opera.
No.
It's a full face.
Yeah. And not one of the smiley or frowny ones.
No.
Just neutral.
Just neutral. I feel like it's called a theatre mask. You put it on and you, I don't know, become a character. So this mask takes us into our first story, which I think every story is meant to have a name, but the name doesn't come up. It's something that I just found in my...
The name of the second one is great.
Yes, it is. This one is just called Dollface. You get it? Because she's got like a doll, like mask. Yeah. You get it?
No, and if you don't get it, they really hammer it in.
God, don't they just with a fucking hammer. In our first story, we get a bunch of teenagers who are heading off to get drunk at a weird old abandoned house. This movie set me off on the back foot immediately because it has one of the things that I hate most in films, especially horror films, which is close to middle-aged men writing teenage girl dialogue.
OMG.
OMG, OMFG. I've seen so many horror movies, especially the horror movies we get here in Australia at the cinemas are not often indicative of what America is generally releasing. And so we get a lot of those cheaply made but are actually incredibly profitable horror films where, again, you have these male, usually middle-aged screenwriters who are trying to write teenage dialogue and they fucking suck at it.
It was wild to me how bad the dialogue in this show was. I couldn't handle it. The pacing made it even worse.
It's kind of obscene that they don't just think, teenage girls can usually just talk like normal human beings. Like, they don't all talk like their own dads doing impressions of them. Well, here's a little clip of the, no doubt, incredibly accurate dialogue for our teenage protagonists.
Oh my god, you were so right. That mascara totally gave me the confidence I needed to tell him it was over.
I told you, babe. You just gotta get those lashes plumped and you feel like the baddest fish in town.
And he was texting me like, babe, you can't treat me like this. Cry face, cry face, cry face. I was like, you have to treat a queen with respect. Crown, I'm just so glad I talked to you first.
Oh my god, I'm so glad I talked to you too.
It also the fact that a lot of the actors in this are not great. So maybe they could deliver this script a little bit better, but the script is pretty bad.
No, I'm not putting that on the actors.
And it's your classic slasher setup where it's a bunch of horny teenagers who are eventually punished. The horny teenagers are talking about how there was these murders at the house. Apparently they knew the two sisters who lived there and who escaped. Apparently they used to bully them. The whole backstory of the victims of the crime is not clear. Again, surprisingly, not written very well. The set design on this movie, Scott, is insane. Every story...
I had more to say about the second one on that front, but in general it's very bad, but the second short...
We're going to keep coming back to it, but again, why couldn't they have just given someone $50 to go to fucking Target and be like, make this house look like people live in it?
Yeah. I was unclear on whether people were supposed to live in this house or not. Because they were talking about it as like this abandoned like murder house.
Yeah.
Then they go into a room that's filled with like, who lives here? I don't know, someone. Like, what?
My
is
favorite
this place?
My favorite bit is two characters go to get some privacy, and they go into a room, and one character says, "This looks like a little girl's room," but there's just a rack of men's shirts behind her. Like a clothes rack that you get for like $20 from IKEA when you're like
it's my
living...
share house.
Yeah, you're living in, when you're backpacking, you get like one of those horrible racks that take up so much space.
I've got one I'm trying to get rid of right now.
Yeah.
If anyone wants one, they're great.
No, they're nasty.
You can use them if you're making a shitty movie.
They're nasty pieces of work. But it's entirely men's shirt. Why? Yeah. Move it out of the way. Move it out of the shot.
Well, they needed it to cover the mask that was there the whole time.
Yeah.
And, I will admit, I'm really bad with jump scares. So I was like, oh, there's going to be a jump scare because the mask from the shop, so it's a key item in this story.
Yes.
Was like peeking out from this rack of men's clothing in
very
this
unsubtly
girl's room.
Yeah.
While the two are like deciding where to hook up. And I'm like, at some point this is going to jump out and I'm going to get scared because that's what happens. I did not get scared.
Good job, buddy.
I was like, this is the easiest setup.
You could see it the whole time. You could see the mask poking out from the men's shirts.
But
like
I was
a child
if
at a
the music
department
goes
store.
loud enough and I don't expect the exact moment it's going to happen, I'll still be like, oh.
You also don't see you don't see most of the murders in this. I think you see one maybe actually happen, but a lot of that is, cuts to a cross and then you see a bloodied hand later.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing that I found interesting about this is why are all these teenagers so mean to each other?
They're awful people.
They're all bad, but are they meant to be friends? Because they're all really horrible to each other. None of them look like they know each other.
No, and the start was weird where they turn up in like a few different cars.
One couple go exploring. They're the first to be killed, obviously.
Oh yeah, and there's the other one goes downstairs and then she kisses her and she kisses her back and then what did she say?
Yeah, so
she says OMG, doesn't she?
Yeah, so the two Valley girls from the dialogue that I just played, they're obviously being bitches and they're like, let's go into the basement to drink because we don't like the two other girls who are here. And one of them is clearly into the other one and she kisses her. She also says, "Your hands are so soft," literally like a baby panda. The girl is rebuked. She's like, a lot of horrible things to say to her friend,
Yeah.
who clearly has a crush on her.
Yeah.
The other two young women who are upstairs, again, I didn't catch any of their names.
No way.
They meet up, the two younger women upstairs meet up with two awful young men.
Oh, yeah, the guys rock up. Yeah.
Yeah, two blokes just rock up.
Yeah.
We get this devilish line.
Come on. We need some alone time.
Yes, ma'am. When a lady is in a need, a gentleman must rise to the occasion.
When he says that line, he says it to the room.
Yeah.
Like, but the room is, there's only a couple of people in there, but he kind of does it in the round.
So as is the custom, the two horny young folks go out the back to fuck. Because that's what you do when you're in an abandoned house. You go and fuck outside.
You go outside, yeah.
Yeah. So he's getting head and then gets his head chopped off.
Yeah.
You see what they did there?
Yeah.
That's clever, Scott.
That is smart.
Yeah. I don't know if you
Really
know
relies
that.
on the audience using certain terminology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in other, you might have to like blow his face off with a shotgun.
Yeah. And then, see, what you need is you need to have the killer say the line afterwards. So you need to say, you know, if you blow the head off someone who's getting blown, you have to say something like, "I guess you blew your load."
Yeah.
Or something that one of those slashers would say. Clearly, that is classic horror movie poetic justice.
I mean, the prosthetic of the half face was not bad. Like,
That's true.
It comes and lands on screen, and it's just the top half of his face 'cause it's been cut in half.
No,
That's probably the most impressive death in the whole film, actually, and they get it out of the way very early.
So the other of our shitty blokes is upstairs with the young deaf woman.
Yeah.
She leaves in a huff when he very ungracefully tries to come onto her.
Yeah.
He's a scumbag. They're all scumbags. This is
Yeah.
just what the writer obviously thinks of teenagers.
Yeah.
He spots what turns out to be our dollface killer in the hallways. He even calls her dollface,
Yeah, he calls her
despite
dollface.
the fact that he can't see her face.
Yeah.
All he can see is the back of her terrible wig.
Yeah.
So she smashes a bottle into his face.
That death's all right.
That's kind of fun.
Probably the best death.
Yeah. Best death. Again, so many things where I'm just like, that didn't need to be that way. Why do budget films insist on having these incredibly cheap-ass looking wigs that look cheap? I understand if you genuinely don't have the money to get a good wig, fine, but there are things you can do to make a wig look less like you just bought it from the $2 shop.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes you don't need a wig. There was no, like, I'm sure that there was an actor you could have found that had long, dark hair.
Yeah, it was like the wig was part of the mask, but it wasn't.
No, and it didn't need to be. There's a character later that has
Yeah.
like a horrible blonde wig. It's like, just cast a blonde actress.
Yeah.
So eventually the young deaf woman and Dollface, they square off in this terribly choreographed fight. It's so clunky, and it's like,
so bad.
I know that these actors are very young. I mean, I didn't look into their individual IMDb's. I imagine they don't have a huge amount of experience, but that's up to the director.
Use some shaky cam.
Yeah, it's up to the director to be like, make it look a little bit less like you're trying to dance. So the other woman who was initially with the deaf woman,
Yeah.
she comes in and she drops this bombshell.
Yeah.
She's like, "Why did you kill my sister?"
Yeah.
Apparently, Dollface is this woman's sister, and they were together in a madhouse after the massacre. They were the kids from the house from the massacre. You get it?
Yeah. So you probably hear the resignation in my voice. I was like,
Yes.
oh yeah, that's how it ended.
Oh yeah,
Like, it was a genuine question. She's like, why did you kill my sister?
because she was trying to kill me.
She was trying to kill her, and she just murdered everyone else in the house.
Yeah.
She's like, why would you do that? It's like, well, why did you bring it to the... She'd orchestrated the whole thing.
Why?
What did she think was going to happen? Like...
Well, the thing that I found interesting, so when we first see the mask in the store, it looks horrible. So it's cracked. It's got these like big black cracks on it. It's got smeared makeup. It looks horrible. And then Thaddeus says that they found it after a house fire. So you're like,
oh, that's right.
oh,
Yeah.
it's damaged from the fire.
Yeah.
But then we have a flashback scene where apparently Dollface, when she was in the asylum, was given the mask so that she'd, quote, always be pretty.
Yeah.
And then when we get footage of the little girl opening the gift, the mask just
Yeah.
looks like that.
Yeah, it's
So
it's the original.
You purposely gave this little girl a mask that looked like shit to make her pretty?
Yeah. You
So-
always feel pretty.
Yeah, you know how having a mask that looks like a doll that's been in a fire
Yeah.
makes you look pretty? She unfortunately has to kill... I think the deaf girl kills the sister.
Yeah.
And then that's the end of Dollface.
And then the house burns down.
Yes, the house burns down somehow. I don't think they mentioned...
Unrelated.
Yeah.
Although, yeah,
It's a leaky pipe
I'm
somewhere.
not sure if it's implied that she burns the house down afterwards, or if it just happens at a later date.
Yeah, it was just
Unrelated.
some other teens. When we're back in the store, Thaddeus is looking at Amelia, and he thinks they've met before. He's like, I'm a bit suspicious of you.
Yeah.
Let's
move on.
Let's just marinate on that for a little bit. Come and look at my wares. So Amelia spots this absolutely fucking horrible doll on the wall. It's a doll of a rabbi.
Yeah.
That's apparently made by a rabbi. They don't say when. It's just in some olden time, I think. The Thaddeus says that he got it from some very distraught parents. And this is a story you mentioned that has an amazing name. Which
but they don't share that with you in the movie.
No, they don't. There's no title cards or anything.
No.
You just, I think that you either have to look at it in the credits, I think. I looked it up online.
I think this came up on IMDb when I looked it up or something.
Yes. So the name of this story is The Hand That Rocks the Dreidel.
Yeah.
Great. Love it. Love a horror pun. So there's a couple. They're giving their son a Hanukkah gift of this wretched doll. I don't know, again, why they couldn't have just put a few furnishings in this house to make it look like this family actually fucking lived in it.
This is the one that really killed me on set design because it
the
was an empty house. It was just empty.
The little
kid's
boy's room
was just a bed.
The little boy's room literally only... Okay, so this is...
like a cell.
Yeah, he's like... So I think the little boy's supposed to be like, what, 9 or 10?
Yeah.
I'm terrible with ages. But...
something like that.
So everything... It looks like a bad Airbnb. Like, everything in it, there's like a single bed, a lamp...
It's probably what it was.
It's just renting for a week, yeah.
Probably.
What is it? There's a bed, a lamp... There's one magazine on the bedside table that I think is about sharks, if I looked correctly.
I think there was something about sharks.
And there's like there's so little else. It is just so sparsely decorated. Why didn't anyone think that's not what little children like? Children have toys.
I mean, that kid was pretty creepy. Credit where credit's due.
Yeah, that's true. The maybe the parents somehow knew that their child was going to grow up to be a bit of a serial killer.
Out of this like segment, I kind of liked the energy the parents were giving, and felt like with some like they could have so much of this, if they just like lent into the like weird or like badness of it and hide in it, it could have been so enjoyable. But instead, I'm like, I'm so unclear at every point on what is supposed to be good or bad. Yep.
So I felt that way when we have the opening scene when the parents are giving Kevin, our child protagonist, the doll, where they're really creepy in the way they're doing this scene. So they're very stilted, they're quite monotone, cold performances, and they're sort of a little bit backlit. And I'm like, if this is meant to be the parents are creepy and that's why they've given their child this horrible, upsetting doll, that makes sense. Otherwise, these actors are just bad actors and they're just meant to be like loving, normal parents.
Part of me blames it because I was like, they're kind of doing a good job of something that I don't think is the intent.
So we meet Lisa, our babysitter, who's an awful person. Terrible bitch. I don't know how the parents haven't...
Transparent.
Yeah, I don't know how the parents haven't figured this out already. But the parents are going away for the weekend somewhere.
Don't they go to Paris or something absurd?
Well...
for like 2 days?
Well, it is a little bit confusing because they're only going away for the weekend, and when they leave, the babysitter says, have fun in Germany.
Germany, yes.
But... they've already established that they just got back from Germany because that's where they got the wretched doll. Going back to Germany for 2 days.
Get some more dolls.
Yeah.
We loved it.
The doll trade. The rabbi-haunted doll trade. I also thought, and I'll put the pictures on the socials, but the actors who played the babysitter and the mother look exactly the same to me.
They look very similar.
Like, I'll put them side by side on the socials, and it's like, am I just bad with faces where I just think these two women look exactly the same and I can't tell the difference?
They look more similar than they should.
The babysitter is very unconvincing in how much she tries to hide how much she hates this kid.
Yeah.
She hates the kid, she hates the parents.
Yeah.
And she's not good at hiding it.
There's so much dialogue in this movie, in every segment, where they spell out like everything that's going on in a way that's like, a lot of movies do it for exposition, but this one, the things that are going on are not hard to follow.
Yeah.
Like she lays out her plan for stealing all the stuff in her house on the phone to her boyfriend.
Yes.
for a really long time.
Oh my god, they're on the phone for fucking ages.
And yeah, I got it.
Yeah, so Lisa's plan, and it has been all along, is to rob this house of its millions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like jewelry in the basement or something.
Yeah, for a house that has nothing in it, these people don't seem very rich.
Yeah.
But apparently they are.
Oh yeah, and her boyfriend just sucks. It's like this guy in a car.
Yeah, so
Like,
Trey.
Yeah, Trey.
He fucking sucks
who's getting
so much.
Head while he's on the phone to her, which I'm glad they revealed, because there was a moment where he made like a very like O face during their conversation at a moment that didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think they were just like, we need to make this character as much of a dirtbag as possible because, spoiler alert, he dies.
Yeah.
So they're like, all right, so what this character is going to do is he's going to be this gangster type guy. I don't think...
He's like Chet Hanks.
Yes, okay, yeah. Big Chet Hanks energy.
Yeah.
He's like this...
There's a Chet Hanks in this movie. He's it.
There's a Chet Hanks in every movie, Scott.
You have to look out for him.
Yeah, so he's on the phone with ostensibly his long-term girlfriend who they've been plotting this heist with, but he's also just like getting sucked off on the phone at the same time.
And then he just kicks that woman out of the car and she gets out and leaves.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, but it's unclear where they're parked, and I'm worried about where he dropped her off.
Yeah, we don't follow back to this character who was left on the side of the road after Trey was done with her. It was But again, it's just being like, hey, we need you to know very quickly that this character is a shitbag.
Yeah.
I don't know if the actor was playing that role as comedic, because there's a character in the film Better Watch Out, which is a very, very good horror film that I really love and I encourage people to watch. And there's a character in that is a similar kind of vibe. Not as much of a shitbag, but definitely that kind of, young white guy that listens to a lot of hip-hop.
Seth Green.
Yeah.
90s.
Yes, okay, yeah. It's the natural culmination of Seth Green and Can't Hardly Wait moving down the line into horror movies. So the actor and the script in Better Watch Out calls for that character to be funny. So it's like knowing it's a parody of this type of guy, but he's also kind of a bit likable because he's kind of silly.
Yeah.
I don't know what this actor in Holiday Hell was doing, whether this was meant to be like, this is so silly that it's meant to be funny, or if they think they're doing a really good impression of this kind of archetype man.
And this is basically his only scene.
Oh,
like,
yes,
this
yes.
is his big... This is it for this guy.
This is his sizzle reel.
This is going in his reel.
Kevin overhears Lisa plotting to rob the joint, so she locks...
Because hey, you couldn't. She's doing it for ages.
She's doing it for ages, and she's just
and he's got
walking
nothing to do in his room.
They're in this huge house, and she's just walking around having this very loud conversation. So she locks him in his room for the weekend. Incredibly cruel bitch.
Yeah.
She turns on a dime immediately, but thankfully, Kevin finds a scroll in the box that the doll came in.
Yeah.
And it has some Hebrew writing on it that turn out to be a sort of incantation. I don't know why when people find spooky-looking writing or spooky-looking scrolls, they always feel the need to read it out loud. My favorite thing about Kevin, I wish they had played him up to be more pathetic, because when the doll comes to life and he realizes that the doll is alive, the first thing he asks it is, "Are you my friend?"
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Poor Kevin. Poor lonely Kevin.
Also, the weird thing about this movie, I feel like the kid's energy is so... But also his energy gives off the thing, like, he could have done everything this doll did himself.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know if
he's a menacing child.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's just the actor or...
And he takes a lot of pleasure in the doll's actions.
Yes, yeah.
Every time.
He's like, fuck this babysitter, I've always hated her. Yeah, the actor's actually doing quite well if he's meant to be playing it menacingly. Otherwise, he's got entirely the wrong tack. There's a smile he gives at the very end of the anthology where I'm like, oh, that kid is going to grow up to be a murderer.
Yeah.
And he's going to blame it all on the doll. So Lisa starts hearing noises in the house. She assumes it's Kevin and starts prowling around the house with this giant knife looking for him. And she's ready to murder this 9-year-old child.
I hadn't registered that, but yeah.
So she actually says, so this is what she says as she's looking for him.
If you think I'm afraid to hurt you, you've got another thing coming, you hear me? You think I've never cut a kid before? That's nothing! I've cut kids, and I would take great joy in cutting your fucking head off!
Fucking hell. Jesus, like...
I forgot about that.
how many children have you murdered, Lisa the babysitter?
Yeah.
And why? So in hunting the child, Lisa accidentally stabs her loser boyfriend in the neck and he
Yeah.
dies. Good.
Honestly, didn't see that coming, to be fair.
So she goes upstairs to get Kevin when she sees that he saw her kill Trey.
Yeah.
And he does some very menacing giggles.
Yeah. He's like, he just saw a man die.
Yes.
Like, he just saw a man get stabbed in the throat and die. And he's loving it. And the doll hasn't even been involved at this point.
No, not really. I mean, because you don't see the doll doing very much.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's actually the doll and what's actually Kevin. Especially because the only person that's died so far has been because of Lisa.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. At this point, the doll hasn't done anything except make a sound, which the kid could have done. And then she's picked up a knife. Oh no, it scattered knives on the ground or something. She picks one up and then accidentally stabbed her boyfriend.
Yeah.
So at this point, the kid could have just been in a different room.
So she goes upstairs to get Kevin, and she's at the top of the stairs. And this is probably the only time that we see the doll doing anything real. The doll cuts her Achilles tendon, and she falls down the stairs and dies. The thing I love about that scene is that the doll has a little knife.
Yeah, it's so small. And it's
tiny little knife of his own.
Yeah.
It wasn't even part of the knife
No.
set. It was like his own little knife.
Yeah. And he's so deliberate in his little slash.
Shook.
Yeah.
It's like, isn't that kind of thing where it's like, because he's like a little doll, anything he picks up that's human
Will
size
turn
becomes
small,
small. He picks up like a big butcher's knife and it becomes small when he holds it in his little hand.
Yeah.
The
I
doll.
think this leads to my favorite part of this segment, though, which is like there are two dead people in the house, and the kid, unfazed, completely unfazed, this kid is by murder. He's like, "Will you help me clean it up?"
Yeah. And the doll somehow manages to do it. The
Yeah.
doll manages to take these two adult human bodies and pose them in Trey's truck to look like a murder-suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly the doll has like watched CSI, and it's like the doll is like, yes, we want this to look like she went mad with jealousy and killed her boyfriend and then herself.
And the doll doesn't speak, but the kid has like a full story of what happened that he tells his parents when they get home.
Kevin doesn't tell his parents on camera about the doll. I guess it's something that would have happened on screen. I don't know why. I don't know if he thought that they wouldn't believe him, because he believed it quick smart.
Yeah.
He like immediately he thought nothing of the fact that this doll had come to life in front of him from this incantation. And that's the end of that segment. Again, it's cut off. We just have to assume a lot of things based on what Thaddeus tells us in the wraparound. Amelia then spots a bloodied Santa costume, an item which Thaddeus says that a friend of his who works at the morgue brought him.
Yeah.
Which is a detail I kind of like. You know, this idea that, you know, he has like a relationship with someone who works at a morgue that brings him just stuff. I mean, he does have skulls.
Yeah.
So in the next story, we meet a man called Chris, who's played by Joel Murray,
Yes.
who I would argue, even though Jeffrey Combs is obviously my favorite, I would argue is one of the best actors of this. He's genuinely really good at this role, genuinely very good as an actor.
Yeah.
Evidently, he was Fred Rumsen for 7 years.
Yeah, well, there you go.
In Mad Men. So,
Like, he's done a lot of good stuff. Watching this kind of thing makes you... Sometimes you're like, what is that? Can you tell if an actor's good? Can I tell if an actor's good? It's like, this guy was clearly the standout actor in this movie.
I will say that, and it does change towards the end, but I will say that this is one of Jeffrey Combs' more restrained roles. I mean, I know I often say that he plays crazy very well, but this is definitely a understated, quite reserved performance from him. He's meant to be just a kind of slightly eccentric man. You know, he does obviously get a little bit more menacing and threatening in the third act, which we'll see. So Chris is married to Susan, who fucking hates him. Susan is an absolute...
She fucking despises
She's
this
an
man.
absolute nightmare bitch. Like, from the minute we meet her, he's coming home. And again, okay, this is another thing about low-budget movies that you can easily avoid. When he comes in the door to the bedroom, the door whacks very noisily on the wall.
Yeah.
That's how you tell a low-budget movie, because they haven't even thought to take that out or do something about it to make it look less like you're at a pop-up home.
Yeah.
So
Looks like a hotel.
Yeah, again, there's no sense that these people actually live in this room.
No.
Yeah. Susan immediately starts badgering him as soon as he
Yeah.
gets home about how he didn't get a promotion. This guy, Tom, he got a promotion over you. If only you were as good as Tom. I hate you. I don't want to have sex with you. You're ugly. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like, yeah, don't you want to have sex? We haven't had sex in like an extremely long time. She's like, no, I never want to have sex with you again.
Yeah, well, so
Is it because I'm fat? Yes, it's because you're fat and ugly.
Yeah, so she basically tells him that she's not attracted to him. She doesn't want to have sex with him.
Ever.
She berates him for his choices. It's like,
Yeah.
guys,
And he's quite jovial coming in.
get a divorce.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what has brought you two together. I assume it's because as we meet later, they have a child, but I don't think the child is getting any benefit from your toxic relationship. So Susan doesn't want him to drink tonight at the Christmas party. See, Christmas. There you go.
And his name's Chris. Chris
And he goes
Kringle.
on a mass killing spree.
Yeah.
Chris mass killing spree.
Spoiler alert. Oh, no.
Pretty sure 99% of the people saw that coming. If you didn't, you must enjoy going to the movies. You're
There was
constantly
there was
surprised.
blood on the Santa costume.
Yep.
And we've talked about a guy whose wife hates him and he has nothing left.
Yep. Chris seems to work for some sort of pharmaceuticals company, and his boss tells him that he wants him to be more like Tom,
Yeah.
this young go-getter guy.
Yeah, who got the promotion.
Mm-hmm. And then his boss gives him these pills, mysterious pills that he's like, these will give you a wild night, buddy.
Yeah, aren't they meant to... he says they're for older patients.
It's very vague as to what they actually do. Like he doesn't specify that it's for, I don't know, erections or fun or antidepressants.
But he says he took some while sitting and watching static on TV and had one of the best nights of his life. That's what he says to this guy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, at the Christmas party, Chris sees Tom, the go-getter, the cool guy, fucking his wife.
And his wife sees him seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't give a fuck. She's like, look at this.
She likes it.
Yeah. She loves making him the cuck of this situation. And
There's like prolonged eye contact in multiple flashbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate they've gotten to the point where he seems to be just kind of resigned and sad about walking in on his wife fucking someone else. You'd think you'd have a bit more of an emotional reaction, but I think he's quite depleted at this point.
Also, because before he sees them go off, he's getting hit on
by a much younger woman.
Inexplicably.
Yeah.
He's dressed as Santa and she's hitting on him.
Yeah.
Overtly.
Yeah, and he doesn't take the bait.
No.
He's like, no, I'm married. I like my wife. Inexplicably. Despite saying he wasn't going to drink, Chris does go out to drown his sorrows. And the one thing I always think when I watch films that are set in American bars is fucking hell, American shot glasses are big. Like, even though he's drinking a double, that's like the size of a glass here.
Yes, it's the tumbler.
Yeah.
He's drinking whiskey.
It is insane how big American shot glasses are. Americans, explain yourself. Why are they so big?
By this point of the segment, it's gone for so long. This is by far the longest one, I think.
Yeah, I didn't measure how long they all were. Some of them felt shorter than others.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure this was the longest one in time.
When he's at the bar, he pairs his whiskey with some of these pills that his boss gave him. He makes some friends with a bloke at the bar. They're having a great time. I actually wanted to see more of them together. I thought they were pretty funny. And then Chris gets angry and belligerent and goes all falling down on the bartender.
Yeah.
Smashes his face right up a tree. And then we see him buy a bunch of stuff from the hardware store.
Yeah.
Going to the hardware store in the middle of the night, not usually a good sign.
Also, they have 24-hour hardware stores?
Yeah, hardware stores open till 2 a.m.
That sell these to a drunk Santa, like a nail gun. And
Yeah. You know when a drunk Santa comes into your shop and buys a nail gun and a big like weird spiky gear.
Yeah.
Yep. These are all normal things for home improvement at 2 a.m. He also starts hearing some very off-putting voices in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, things that are telling him things that possibly he already knew but didn't want to hear about how much his wife hates him and enjoys fucking other men.
Yeah. Also, because it sets up too, like it sets up that he was an alcoholic, but it doesn't say like what the consequences of that were. But it also sets up these pills that it never explains what they're for. And then it just is like, yeah, this combination of those things makes this happen.
So it seems to be a hallucinogen, but it's also just amplifying the things he already feels. Like he's hearing voices about things that are already
They're
horrible.
very obvious.
Yeah, or horrible things that he already thinks about. We have a great scene of Tom doing coke with some girl, doing coke off some girl's tits, especially. Yeah. I guess this is meant to be like, hey, this guy's like,
look at this guy's life.
Oh, actually, no, you know who he is? He's Ellis from Die Hard. That's who they want you. That's who they want. This is just a fun little thing he says.
Oh, I'm high on Teddy Coke. Oh.
He seems to be having fun with the role he's been given.
So yeah, the actor Jeff Brian Davis, he's done a few things. He's in something called Laser Fart. Do you want to know what Laser Fart's about?
Yes.
This is actually the way that the description is written as well. This guy runs a laser light show, and then one day he accidentally swallows one of the lasers from his show. After the digestion process, he then produces laser farts. Luckily, he has Tums. ... Luckily. What?
What's Tums?
Tums is like a Alka-Seltzer or...
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What do you call that stuff? Mylanta?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
all
Gaviscon.
those things. Yeah, Gaviscon.
Yeah, whatever that stuff is.
Great.
Anyway, Jeff's doing a bang-up job as Tom. He's having a lot of fun.
He doesn't have laser farts, but he's got titty coke.
He has titty coke, which is all any of us can ever ask for in this life. Chris goes on a bit of a rampage at his office.
Oh yeah, and his boss is about to sleep with
some
have
woman.
An affair, yeah.
Yep, just some lady, and he's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Fuck you. He kills Tom with a nail gun.
Yeah, which it doesn't show you. Like, it doesn't show you what you see him use the nail gun, but it kind of implies that he uses it on his dick.
Oh, really? Yeah, because you just kind of see him shoot vaguely at where Tom was sitting.
Yeah,
so
and I thought he was like angling low, and then it would go back, and he'd be like, "See, I got you," and then he would kill him. But instead, he just shoots a lot with his nail gun.
Yeah, and then
that's it.
And then he says this.
You nailed my wife. I think I'd better nail you, huh?
Oh my God, no!
His horrible wife wakes him up the next morning, and she's so annoyed that he was drinking and doesn't even seem to care that apparently his Santa suit is covered in blood, despite it not being covered in blood when we see him get home from killing people.
Yeah.
There's nothing on it when he gets home, but the
No.
next morning, mysteriously, the blood is still there, and weirdly, it's still wet.
It's still soaking. It's also, I found this such a weird choice to have him wake up the next and then like have a new thing start going on. I was like, oh, I thought he would just like keep going on his rampage and that would be it, and that's the movie. But instead, he blacks out, wakes up, has this whole conversation with his wife. Also weird that his wife left the party
separate to him. She was like, where did my husband go? Doesn't matter.
I mean, that almost made like she was off having sex with Tom, but that she didn't stay with Tom the rest of the night.
No, she was just
went off
wandering around,
like
probably looking for other people to have sex with.
Yeah, like
yeah.
What is everyone doing?
Well, we know what Chris was doing.
Yeah,
Chris was killing people, and then to top it all off, he takes some of the more mystery pills and kills his wife.
Big decision. Take some more pills.
I mean, it was bound to. I mean, you do not make a character that horrible to not kill her in the end.
Yeah, the end.
That's the end. Yeah, that's
and
the end.
He must die somehow.
Yeah,
because he's in the morgue.
Yeah. So Thaddeus says, I think in a sort of in when they come back from that story, Thaddeus says something about how he goes wandering off into traffic.
Oh yeah, he gets hit by a
truck or something, and that's how the Santa suit ended up in the morgue.
Yeah.
You'd think that
completely unrelated to everything he's done.
Yeah, he didn't kill himself or anything.
Yeah.
No, he just got just a normal automobile accident.
Yeah.
You'd think the suit would be covered in blood if he got hit by a car as well.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
Well, storytelling is what is he? Yeah. Then there's like this bit where he says like stories are the most wonderful thing we have.
Ah, yes, they live outside of time and space and race and all this stuff.
Yeah, which is like what you'd expect like a real like screenwriting craft person to write, but like clearly no one who wrote this film is a real screenwriting craft person.
Yeah, so Thaddeus is meant to be. You're meant to assume that Thaddeus is the voice of the writer who prizes the story above all else, and how all inanimate objects inherently have a story attached to them. But I think the writers of this thought that all inanimate objects have a kind of hinky, tropey horror movie cliche attached to them that we can execute poorly. I don't mean to be super mean about it, but I also have to because this is just so poorly executed, this whole movie.
I think, I don't understand this movie. because it's just doing tropes, but with no... I don't get any sense that they're like having a good time making it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like they're just doing these tropes. There's no subversion of the tropes. They must know the tropes because they're doing them to the letter. But there's no sense of, like, that anyone's had a good, like...
Yeah, there's no sense that this is a passion project for anyone.
Yeah.
And there's no sense of, you know, like when you watch, like, The Evil Dead, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like my go-to when we talk about low-budget films that are just done so well that then go on to influence other things. Because when you watch Evil Dead, you can see immediately, A, how little money they had and how many ideas they had, and B, how much fun they had on making the film. It was clearly a passion project. Clearly they were just throwing ideas at the wall, and they were trying new things and trying to do as much as they could with their limited budget. This film was doing the opposite of that. Like, it seemed like you can have a low budget and still have a fun, interesting movie. This didn't have a budget and it didn't have ideas.
Yeah, and it was, like, kind of, like, shot fine. Like, in, like, a...
Acceptable, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, you could trauma. Yeah, like, those are people who... I mean, there's a lot of problems with this, but,
Yes.
there were clearly people who, like, wanted to do some horror movies and weird movies and just, like, went all out doing it. It's not like they just tried to do the tropes really well.
Yeah, or
Like,
interestingly.
yeah.
So when we cut back to Amelia and Thaddeus, she wants to leave the store. She's like, I'm not going to find anything for my sister. But Thaddeus is very persistent. He gets a little bit pushy.
Yeah.
He's also very taken by a ring that Amelia is wearing. She says it was her mother's, which leads her to tell Thaddeus the story of the ring. This is where we get our last...
But that's also after she sees a skull and he says, no.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes. He's like, oh, you don't want to hear the story of that skull.
Yeah.
Nothing interesting behind that skull.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you tell me I don't want to hear about it, then
Yeah.
I probably want to hear about it.
Yeah.
But so
Might come up later, I don't know.
So
it would be great if it never came up again.
Yeah. The skull had nothing to do with
It was
it.
actually really boring.
Yeah, I just found it.
Yeah.
I found it in the trash. So in our last vignette, we meet a young woman called Anna who goes to a farmhouse to rent a room. I have no idea what time period this is meant to be.
No.
Because if we were meant to assume that it's Amelia's mother's generation,
Yeah.
if this is in 2019 and Amelia is in, like, let's say her 20s,
Yeah.
this is going to be like late 90s.
Yeah.
It has a weird
Where
vibe,
are
but
these people?
but it's also completely disconnected. I mean, it has a small town, old-timey vibe to it because it's a small farming community, but...
And I would almost say the worst acting in the film so far, overall.
Oh, I don't know. Tough competition.
Yeah,
because the woman who rents her the room, Lavinia, she's wearing, for pretty much the whole film, she's wearing this, like, floor-length kind of gown thing with, like, a choker. I'm like, is that 90s? Is it 70s? When are we? So Lavinia is very suspiciously inquiring about Anna's family and friends and any connections she might have in the town.
Yeah, this went for so long. I got the most bored in this one.
Well, this one definitely had the least interesting story, I think.
Yeah.
And it also did the least with it.
There's a reason it's last.
So Lavinia is wearing the same ring that we see Amelia's wearing. So it's like, there's the connection. I'm sure we'll find out where that's going.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just going, a lot. Because as you recount plot details, I'm like, oh God, yeah. I remember that happening.
Well, yeah, because it's like, so there's a scene where Anna, she wakes up in the middle of the night, she sees a bunch of people with flaming torches coming out of a house. And then...
the guy's just like, no, they weren't.
Yeah, so Robert, who is Lavinia's much younger husband, he comes up the stairs, he's like, I was just coming up to check on you. Don't worry about those noises, I'm sure it was nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, that's inherently, menacing and weird. Let's not question you any further. So Anna goes for a job at the local feed store where she meets Ned, the shop owner. He also has the ring.
Yeah, he has the ring.
Yep. He also has a daughter who shows Anna that her tongue has been cut out.
Yeah. And it has, like, a lot of urgency about it.
Yeah, she's like, look
clearly,
what's happening.
Like, this is a warning.
Yes,
energy.
Yeah. If she could say, get the fuck out of this town, I'm sure she would.
Yeah.
So immediately you're like, oh, it's a cult.
Yeah.
Like, what else is it going to be? It's either going to be like the lottery where they sacrifice me to keep the crops good.
Yeah.
Or, it's going to be like fucking the Wicker Man where they put me in an effigy and burn me alive.
Yeah.
Any of your classic cult stories would do fine. But instead, Lavinia and Robert poison Anna's tea And when she's unconscious, they take her to like a barn where Livia explains that through their belief in this like moon goddess, that by sacrificing Anna, they will get a child. The child that they've always wanted.
Yeah.
I guess. And so there's a whole bunch of weird, silly sounding incantations about the moon. It's not I don't think they're Satanists.
No.
Because they're literally just talking about like a moon goddess. They're not praying to anyone in particular, I don't think. A lot of the words they say just sound like kind of vague gibberish. They say Luna, I don't know.
And then they just chop her head off. Not and that's the end.
Not much of a sacrifice, I would say. Like, there's nothing ritualistic.
No.
You know, normally there's like, I don't know,
like you cut... pentagram.
Yeah, you cut the gut open and fill it with rosemary or something. Yeah. I mean, that's
some candles.
Yeah, that's just more like a punishment. You know?
And also, was it that exact point where I was like, oh, here we go. She'll break free and there'll be like some kind of scene where they have to like capture her and it'll be thrilling and tense. No, they just cut her head off and that's the end of the segment. That's it.
Yeah, they're just like, we're going to sacrifice Anna for a child to raise in this weird cult town. Lavinia cuts her head off with a giant scythe and somehow immediately knows that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And then that's the end. And then it turns out that...
in this movie, every segment is so weirdly paced. I can't emphasize enough how weird the pacing is.
It was so short.
From micro to macro level. Like, the pacing of conversations is weird. The pacing of dialogue is weird. The pacing of...
So, obviously, it turns out that Amelia is the daughter that came from the sacrifice.
Yes.
How about that? That's why she has the ring.
And that's why this weird segment was last.
Yep. Yes, because we had to have our climax scene where Thaddeus he's obsessed with this ring. He's like, I gotta have it. He's desperate to get it. Thaddeus decides he's going to try and kill Amelia. So he goes like under his little counter and he gets like the knife cane or the cane knife.
This takes him a while. Everything takes a while.
Takes him ages. I mean, I guess you had to get the scene, I guess, ready for the next shot.
Yeah.
Because
Which I actually love.
it's so fucking dumb. So when he pops up from the bench ready to kill Amelia, she's brought like a whole bunch of her goth friends.
Yeah, it's like a rave.
It literally just looks like they've showed up at like a goth nightclub. Not even a goth nightclub, because it's not like...
No.
Like, it's not even like Hellraiser goth. It's kind of like rave goth.
It looks like that picture from Arrested Development where Job is like, we demand to be taken seriously, and it's the Magician's Alliance thing. It looks like the Magician's Alliance.
Yeah. Actually, they all kind of look a bit like... they kind of look a bit like when Freddy, Frasier's son, goes goth in that episode of Frasier. And that's the thing, they don't need to be goths, because it turns out that these people are part of, I guess, Amelia's family's order or cult. And so they could have just been normal people who lived in the town. Unless the religion is somehow a goth cult.
No one in the other segment
was goth.
They looked like townsfolk.
Yeah.
No one was...
And if it was set in the 90s, that would have been the perfect time to have been getting around goth. It becomes clear that Thaddeus killed Amelia's sister, who had been a twin. She'd been born a twin. Thaddeus killed her sister for her sister's ring, as evidenced by the skull that we saw earlier.
It's her sister's skull.
Apparently. Yeah. Sure, why not?
And he says something I love. I knew I recognized you.
Yes, so, of course, Amelia and her goth mates use Thaddeus's blood.
I guess this is why they couldn't do a proper cult ceremony in the preceding segment, because then it would have been two in the row of the same thing. Because this is where they put the skull in the middle of the room and surround it with blood they've taken from Thaddeus and then do incantation. This is what you expect from the townspeople. Yes,
this seems more like a cult ritual rather than just lopping someone's head off with a scythe. So she's like, I'm going to do this ritual, bring back my sister. And they do. Jeffrey Combs has a fun freak out at the end of this. Obviously, as I said, he's been quite restrained and reserved up until now, just kind of a dignified older man running a fine shop. But he has a big, crazy freak out at the end, which, you know, he's having a lot of fun. As I always say, he gives 110% to his roles, and I appreciate him giving this thing a dose of fucking good energy, you know? So we meet Ophelia, who is Amelia's sister. As I mentioned, she has a terrible wig and she has zombie makeup.
Yeah.
I don't know if being reanimated makes you a sort of zombie vampire, because she does end up this way. And then she eats Thaddeus. The end. So many weird choices, mate. I just kept watching it and thinking, I just don't know how you couldn't have picked that up. You know, it's like the coffee cup in Game of Thrones. Like, how could you not have seen that this was a mistake?
I wanted to see that guy with nails in him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a cheap way you could have done that. Again, I don't think it was money. I reckon it was just laziness, or they just didn't think of it.
Some of it seemed, like, the budget on this thing I can't figure out. And then the main set, that set for the store is not bad.
Yeah, it's a nice store. Like, it's got a nice vibe in a way that's kind of warm and inviting. In that, I mean, if you like arcane stores full of taxidermy and
the unusual.
The unusual. Also, I will say, did you know this film has won awards? Okay, so
for what?
Well, so it won 3 awards at the Seattle Film Festival in the year it came out.
Yeah.
One obviously for Best Actor for Jeffrey Combs.
Obviously.
Yep. There was a Best Supporting Actress for Megan Karimi Nasa, who played Amelia. And it also won a Seattle Filmmaker Award, which went to Jeff Farrell, one of the Jeffs. One of the writers, directors.
I've just come up with the narrative of how this movie got made in my head.
Yeah.
And it's like one of them made this like the Santa one. And it was like, this is too long to be in a short film festival because it was pretty long. It's not going to cut through, and they've got like one good actor in it. They've gone all out and made that short film.
Yep.
They're like, okay, well, I can't get into any shorts. I've got some friends who also want to try stuff. What if we make it an anthology? And look, it's Christmas. We'll do a Christmas-themed horror thing.
Sure.
But then his friends come back, and they've written things that are not really holiday-themed.
No.
And they're not as into horror, and they've run out. They don't have any money to cast actors like they did for the other one. They're like, all right, well, we'll just make them.
Yeah.
And then we'll throw all our money at the overarching story and get Jeffrey Combs in it.
Yeah. I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to things. Because obviously, you know, when you're starting out with anything...
Oh, I've made such bad stuff.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean...
I'm so glad no one's talking about it. Sometimes I think, like, people are so into directing and they neglect art design. Like, they're like, you don't need, like... It's another expense. You don't... And that person's role... Like, that... Like, I can do that job. It's like, well, you can't. Like,
yeah, that's true. It's a whole...
You see it in action, you're like, oh, this person's seen stuff I haven't seen. And I do pay a bit more attention to it. And they've made it work with less. Yeah,
it's amazing how it makes all the difference. I mean, if there had just been a few extra things in this, like, I don't know, slightly better makeup, slightly better practical effects.
Yeah.
It is such a small crew. You know, when you look at IMDb, I mean, the cast seems to outnumber the crew. You've got probably you've got 2 people on makeup. You've got 1 on visual effects. I can't see anybody who's there for anything physical like set design or...
No fight choreographers.
Surprisingly not. You know, there's 1 person in additional crew, and I imagine that they were doing a lot of a lot of the production stuff on the ground. It is that question of whether they knew it was a problem, like with the fighting, like with anything else.
Yeah.
And they decided to ignore it and focus on the direction, the acting, whatever. Or if they genuinely didn't notice that it was going to take people out of the film. And that's Holiday Hell 2019.
Yeah.
It sure was a film.
It was 5.
It sure was
4.5.
It sure was a series of rapidly produced images moving in front of my eyes.
25 frames per second.
Involving humans of various different shapes and sizes.
One thing, it made me want to make a horror movie.
Yeah.
Or a horror short. It's like, it made me see where they hadn't had fun, where I think I would have fun.
Yeah.
Even just making it, not even showing it to it. It's just like, surely it would be so fun to make a bad horror movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Why did you look like you have any fun?
Yeah, it's like of all the genres, horror always seems like the most fun on set.
I mean, I'm not going to make one because someone will do a whole podcast on it.
If you get Jeffrey Combs, they will.
Yeah.
So, Scott Limbrick, anything to plug?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Great speeches in history, doing 3 months, June, July, August at Fringe Common Rooms.
In Melbourne?
In Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
We just get a bunch of our favourite writers and comedians to do speeches in character as real or fake people from history. It's very fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and we've got a great lineup for the first one, and we will for the others.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Facebook, Scott Limbrick Comedy, and on Twitter at Scott Limbrick. And on Instagram, if you want, at S Limbrick. And I'm my own worst nightmare. I tried to get Scott Limbrick on Instagram a couple of months ago. I was like, I'm going to change it. There's some French guy on private with 10 followers and like a lot of posts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always someone that's not that isn't using it as well as you could be.
But I'm also intrigued by what those posts are because there are a lot of them for not many people.
You should just follow him. Just see what he's up to. And then you could turn that into a podcast because everything has to be content.
Yeah, that's true. I'll do a big Scott Limbrick fight.
It's just you and this guy.
Yeah. No, there's another guy in New Zealand. I get some of his parking fines by email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, devious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like something Serial would cover.